In our first unit in TOK, the perception unit, we talked about whether or not we should trust eyewitness evidence. I had a TOK moment when I was taking the SAT this year, and the question for the written portion of the SAT was whether or not we should trust our eyewitness sources as well as the authorities. And this kind of brought me back to TOK when we watched a TED Talk video about trusting the experts. And TOK really taught me how to question the authorities and question what people tell me and not really believe in what other people say, but know what's true to me and what I think is true. And also knowing what is true and what isn't true. Also in psychology class, we talked about the Innocence Project, which was a group of people who got together and realized that innocent people were being convicted of crimes that they didn't commit because of eyewitness evidence that wasn't accurate. And so relating TOK to psychology just made me realize how real it is that if you say something and it's not true and it's important and it needs to be true, it can really play a huge effect on someone's life, especially if it's for something like the Innocence Project, where it depends on their innocence or guilty in court. We also talked about to what extent do emotions color our perceptions. And this kind of made me realize some personal stuff because I really realized that when you love someone or you think you love someone, everything they do kind of seems great. And all their flaws kind of diminish and all their successes and all the good things about them kind of are heightened. And it's kind of hard to see the truth in that. And it's hard to pinpoint the flaws if you're so colored by your emotions. If you really love them or you really think you like them, everything they do seems great. And then you realize later on that it's not really that great. In our next unit, we talked about how technology changes language. And a big part of what I learned from this unit is that it kind of just depends on the person, or it depends on the person's influence of technology. If someone isn't as absorbed into their text messaging, if they're not absorbed into their Facebook conversations, if they're not always emailing or IMing or whatever they're doing, then obviously technology is not going to affect their language as much as it does for somebody that's on or using technology all the time. And Ms. Burvall and I had a conversation earlier on in the year about how when we're texting people, you can recognize their personality even through technology. And I think that if I were to go and look on somebody's phone and all of a sudden start texting somebody, that they would be able to recognize that it was me talking to them instead of the person. Because when you talk to someone a lot, or over text message or over IM, you can kind of recognize when the person you're talking to isn't actually the right person. And so I find that when I text, I talk in full sentences, and a lot of times people think that when you text somebody, you can't get the full purpose out of the conversation. You can't have as good of a conversation over text message that you can over in a real verbal conversation. But I disagree, because I've had so many conversations over text messages or over IM that were even better than real interactive conversations, because a lot of the time it allows one person or the other person, if they're not a very talkative person in real life, it allows them to kind of break out of their shell and be able to talk to people that they might not normally get to talk to, or that just talk on a different level. It's more personal, but it's also less personal, because you could talk to someone over Facebook and it could be about a really personal subject that they might not feel comfortable talking to you about in person, but whenever it's over IM, they're totally fine with it. And so this idea brought me to my ACT test taking moment. When I was sitting there taking my ACT this year, the written question was about technology and its effect on society and language, and whether we should wean today's new generation off of technology or encourage technology. And of course, I said that technology is good. And it allows us to stay in contact with people that we might not normally get to talk to. And even if our language does change in the vernacular that we use, for example, new words are being added to the dictionary because of this, including like words like bromance, things like that. People use that a lot. And that was formed from the conversations that were being held over technology. And even a lot of people nowadays don't use text speak, and they do still write in full conversation and like complete correct grammar and everything. And so it's kind of up to you. If you want technology to change language, I think it's up to the person to either let technology play an influence on how you speak, or you can not let it have an influence. I don't think it's ever going to change language so drastically where we're going to lose all of our grammar, because we're stuck in school and we're forced to have good grammar. So there's other opportunities for us to use good grammar instead of just an everyday speech. In the next unit that we did, the emotion unit, we talked about if you feel something deeply enough, does it make it true? And personally, I think that yes, if you feel something deeply enough, it makes it true, because your personal truth is more important than other people's truth. What you feel and what you think ultimately is your own thoughts, and it's what's important to you. And so in this unit, we had to create an emotion gallery of 2 emotions that we chose, and then using those 2 emotions, we would look up different artifacts or media, pictures, videos that represent this emotion or explain this emotion or give another meaning to this emotion. And one of my classmates used blessed and idolized. And in their blessed emotion gallery, I realized is that it was really personal, and she really put herself into it. And it made me realize that if you really feel something and you really believe it, then that's your own personal truth. So even if other people don't think it's true, as long as you personally feel it and believe it, it's true for you. And we were also having a conversation the other day about how, in regards to religion, if you're raised in a religious household, then when you get to the age where you understand the religion better, you realize that that's your truth because you don't know better. You don't know any different. That's the way you've been raised. It's been embedded into your brain as your personal beliefs, so it's true for you. So although some people say, Christianity, it's all fake, there's nothing real about being a Christian, that's not true for somebody that was raised in a Christian household, because for them, that's their own personal truth. And I think finding your own personal truth is important, because you need to find your beliefs. So we also, this year, we did a This I Believe video. My personal video was a kinetic typography, stop motion-esque kind of video about what I believe in. And after doing this project and reflecting on it, I realized that what you believe really is important to you, because if you don't have beliefs and you don't have anything to stand for, then you have nothing. You have no foundation. You don't know, there's nothing important to you. If you can't find something that you truly believe in and you can focus all your energy on and that you can be passionate about, then that's like being purposeless. And purpose is so important. And so emotion is one of the key ways of knowing. And so as long as you know and are emotionally connected to something or really passionate about something, that's a personal way of knowing for yourself. Finally, for our last unit of the year, we talked about knowledge and truth. And the primary question that we talked about was, what is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? And the first thing that I think about when I hear this question is reflecting on the quote, "Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad." And so I thought this is one of my favorite quotes because it's so true. And it's hard, when you read it, you realize, oh wow, that's a big difference. But when you're talking about knowledge and wisdom, oftentimes it's really hard to differentiate the two, and it's really hard to make a distinction between the two. But when you think about it in this way, in this metaphor, it's really easy to put the pieces together to understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And something that I realized throughout this year is that everyone can gain knowledge. Knowledge is free and knowledge is unlimited, and you can always look it up on the internet, you can ask a professional, you could talk to somebody, and you'll always be able to get some form of an answer or some understanding of a subject. So you can always gain knowledge. But what I realized with wisdom is more emotionally connected, and it's more experience-based. Personally, I think that you can't gain wisdom until you've been through certain experiences that other people might not have been through, or until you go through something that really changes you as a person, that gives you insight, or that teaches you a lesson. Making mistakes, I think, is the primary way for someone to gain wisdom. And a lot of the times people say that you're born with a certain amount of wisdom, and that's you'll only ever stay with that amount of wisdom. But then a lot of people think that as you get older, you gain wisdom, and that's why people say that older people or older generations have more wisdom than younger generations. But personally, I think it's up to the individual and what you believe in and what you strive for and what your purpose is in life, and really just what's important to you to figure out your role with wisdom and how much wisdom you hold. And I don't really think it's an important thing to focus on. I don't think you should dwell your whole life of whether or not you have enough wisdom or have enough knowledge or whatever. I think it's just more important to go through the experiences in life, because you won't dwell on not having wisdom, but you will dwell on not having knowledge. If you're sitting there taking a test, if you don't know something, obviously that's because you have a lack of knowledge. That's not a lack of wisdom. But a lot of the times is you won't realize how much wisdom you have until you're not thinking about it, until it's not important to you. And so I think all of these lessons that we've learned in TOK and all these projects we've done throughout the year and have really taught us all to, focus on what's important to us and really teach us some life lessons. Instead of learning a subject and gaining knowledge, I feel like TOK is more of a class for us to gain wisdom and to gain understanding of what's important, what's real, what's not real, who we should trust, and things like that.